You know, there's this moment that comes in everyone's life, this split second where everything you thought you knew just shatters. Where the floor drops out from under you, and you're falling, but nobody can see it because you're still standing there, still breathing, still smiling, that practiced smile you've worn for so many years that it's carved permanent lines into your face. That moment came for me on Thanksgiving night. But let me back up, because this story, my story, it doesn't start with betrayal. It starts with love. Isn't that how all the worst stories begin? With love so deep, so consuming, that you don't even notice when it starts drowning you? I spent 37 years building a life with a man who made me laugh until my sides ached. Robert. My Robert. He had these hands, rough from years of construction work, but gentle when they touched my face. We built our whole world together in that house on Maple Street. Every nail, every coat of paint, every squeaky floorboard held a memory. And then one Tuesday morning in March, he didn't wake up. Just like that. Heart attack. The doctor said he probably didn't feel any pain, said it like that was supposed to comfort me. Like the absence of his physical pain could somehow balance out the absolute destruction of mine. I became a widow at 53 years old. Do you know what that word feels like? Widow. It sounds like a door closing. Like an ending. Like everything you were is now defined by what you've lost. But I had our son. Daniel. My beautiful boy, well, not a boy anymore. He was 28 then, just married to Jessica, and they needed help. Of course they needed help. Young couples always do, don't they? And what kind of mother would I be if I didn't help my only child, the last piece of Robert I had left in this world? So I did what mothers do. I helped. At first, it was supposed to be temporary. Just until we get on our feet, Mom, Daniel said, his eyes so earnest, so much like his father's that it physically hurt to look at him. Just a few months. We're saving for our own place. The few months became a year. Then 2. Then 5. And somewhere in that time, something shifted. The house that Robert and I built, the home where I raised my son, where I nursed him through chicken pox and taught him to tie his shoes and held him when he cried over his first broken heart, that house stopped feeling like mine. I'm not sure exactly when it happened. Maybe it was gradual, like water wearing down stone. Or maybe there was a specific moment, and I was just too tired to notice it. Because I was tired. God, I was so tired. Every morning, I woke up at 5:30. Not because I'm a morning person, I've never been a morning person. Robert used to joke that I was basically a vampire until at least 9 a.m. But the house needed someone to wake it up. Someone to start the coffee, to put out the breakfast things, to make sure there were clean towels in the bathroom. I did the grocery shopping every Thursday, making 2 trips because my arthritis makes it hard to carry too many bags at once. I remembered that Jessica didn't like cilantro, that Daniel preferred his orange juice with pulp, that they both wanted organic milk even though it cost twice as much. I paid the electricity bill. The water bill. The property taxes. The homeowner's insurance. Did they know? Of course they knew. But there's a special kind of knowing that comes without acknowledgement, a looking away kind of knowing. The kind where everyone agrees, silently, to pretend something isn't happening, even though it absolutely is. I told myself it was fine. I told myself that this was what family did. That love wasn't a transaction, wasn't about keeping score. That someday, they'd remember. They'd appreciate it. I told myself a lot of lies in those years. The week before Thanksgiving, I deep cleaned every room in that house. My knees ached from scrubbing the bathroom tiles. My back screamed from moving furniture to vacuum underneath. But I wanted everything to be perfect. This year will be different, I whispered to myself as I ironed the good tablecloths, the ivory ones with the delicate embroidered edges that Robert's mother had given us as a wedding present. This year, we'll feel like a family again. I clung to that hope like a life raft. Tuesday, I went to the farmer's market and bought fresh ingredients for my famous green bean casserole. Not the one with canned soup, the real one, with fresh cream and mushrooms I sautéed myself. I picked out the perfect turkey, 20 pounds, because Daniel always said he loved the leftovers. Wednesday, I baked 3 pies, pumpkin, apple, and pecan. The house smelled like cinnamon and nutmeg and butter, smelled like every Thanksgiving of my childhood, like my mother's kitchen, like home. Thursday morning, I was up at 4 a.m. to get the turkey in the oven. I set the table with our good china, the stuff we only used for special occasions. I folded the napkins the fancy way, with the little pocket for the silverware. I even put out the crystal glasses, the ones Robert and I got as a wedding gift and barely ever used because we were always afraid of breaking them. What was I afraid of now? That they'd break? Let them break. Let something shatter besides my heart for once. I spent all day in that kitchen. Stirring, basting, chopping, seasoning. The turkey came out perfect, golden brown, the meat so tender it fell off the bone. The mashed potatoes were whipped to creamy perfection. The stuffing was moist and flavorful. The cranberry sauce had just the right amount of orange zest. I had worked myself into exhaustion, but it was worth it. Because tonight, we'd all sit down together. Tonight, we'd be a family. I went upstairs to change into the burgundy dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion. Nothing fancy, I'm not a fancy person anymore, if I ever was, but it was new and it made me feel pretty. It made me feel like maybe I was more than just the invisible woman who paid the bills and cleaned the bathrooms. I could hear voices downstairs as I put on my earrings, the pearl ones Robert gave me for our 25th anniversary. Laughter. Lots of laughter. Good, I thought. They're in a good mood. Maybe tonight really would be different. I came downstairs at 6 o'clock exactly, just as I'd told them dinner would be ready. And that's when I saw them. The dining room was full of people I'd never seen before. Jessica's friends from work, apparently. Her book club. Some neighbors I recognized vaguely but had never actually spoken to. The table was set, the food was laid out, steam still rising from the dishes I'd spent all day preparing. But there was no place for me. Every seat was taken. Every single one. The chairs I'd arranged, the china I'd set out, the meal I'd cooked, all of it was for other people. Strangers. People who looked at me with vague confusion, like I was the one who didn't belong. I stood there in the doorway, in my new burgundy dress, holding the wine I'd brought up from the cellar, the good wine, the expensive bottle Robert had been saving for something special, and I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Daniel saw me first. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw it. That flash of guilt, quickly covered by practiced indifference. He looked away. He looked away from his mother. "Oh, Mom." Jessica's voice was bright, cheerful, so aggressively casual that it made my skin crawl. "We saved you a plate, don't worry." She gestured toward the kitchen counter, where a plastic container sat. Not even one of the nice plates. A disposable container, the kind you get from taking leftovers home from a restaurant. I walked over to it slowly. Opened the lid. Scraps. A spoonful of mashed potatoes that had gone cold. A dried-out piece of turkey, probably from the part nobody wanted. A few green beans. Some congealed gravy. The scraps from the meal I had made. The scraps from the table I had set. The scraps from the home I had built. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at that container. It felt like hours. It felt like seconds. Time does weird things when your heart is breaking. Everyone was looking at me now. I could feel their eyes, though I couldn't bring myself to meet them. The room had gone quiet, that awful, heavy quiet that comes when people know something terrible is happening but nobody wants to acknowledge it. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else shifted in their chair, the wood creaking loud in the silence. I looked up. Looked at my son, who was very deliberately studying his plate. Looked at Jessica, who had that frozen smile on her face, the one that didn't reach her eyes. Looked at all these strangers, sitting at my table, eating my food, in my house. And something inside me just stopped. Not broke. Breaking would have been violent, dramatic. This was quieter. Like a switch flipping off. Like a door closing. Like waking up from a dream you didn't even know you were having. "Thank you," I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange, too calm, too steady. "I'll make sure it's the last meal I eat under this roof." I set the wine bottle down on the counter. Carefully. Precisely. I'm not sure why that detail matters, but it does. I didn't slam it down. I didn't throw it. I just set it down, like I was still a civilized person, like the world made sense, like my heart wasn't currently disintegrating inside my chest. And then I walked away. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, the bedroom I used to share with Robert, though I'd long since moved to the guest room because I couldn't stand sleeping in our bed without him. I closed the door behind me. Locked it. And then I just stood there, in the dark, listening to the sound of laughter starting up again downstairs. They had moved on already. The awkward moment had passed. The food was still warm. The wine was still flowing. Life went on. Just not mine. Not yet. I didn't cry that night. I thought I would. I thought I'd fall apart, shatter into a million pieces that could never be put back together. But the tears didn't come. Instead, something else did. Something cold and clear and sharp as broken glass. Clarity. I sat at my old oak desk, the one Robert built for me when I said I wanted to start writing, though I never did, and opened my laptop. My fingers shook a little as I typed in the password. Not from fear. From anger. Good. I'd been too afraid of my own anger for too long. Time to make friends with it. I opened my financial spreadsheet. The one I'd been keeping meticulously for years, because I'd always been good with numbers, always been organized. Robert used to tease me about it, said I could balance a checkbook in my sleep. Every bill I'd paid. Every expense I'd covered. Every single dollar I'd spent keeping this household running while they managed the home, which apparently meant inviting strangers to Thanksgiving dinner while the woman who paid the mortgage ate scraps in the kitchen. 5 years and 7 months of mortgage payments. 5 years and 7 months of utilities. 5 years and 7 months of property taxes. 5 years and 7 months of insurance, maintenance, repairs. The numbers glowed on the screen in front of me. Cold. Factual. Irrefutable. People say love doesn't keep score. That's beautiful, isn't it? Romantic. The kind of thing you see on greeting cards and motivational posters. But you know what? It's also bullshit. Love absolutely keeps records, mine were just organized. Because here's what I'd learned. When you give and give and give until there's nothing left, and the people you're giving to don't even notice, don't even care enough to save you a seat at the table? That's not love. That's not family. That's a transaction. And in a transaction, both parties need to be aware of the terms. It was time for an audit. I started making calls at midnight. Most of them went to voicemail. It was Thanksgiving night, after all, and normal people were with their families, not sitting alone in the dark, carefully dismantling the financial foundation of their children's lives. But I'm nothing if not thorough. First, the credit cards. The ones I'd added Daniel to as an authorized user, back when he needed to build his credit. Back when I still believed that helping him was the right thing to do, that good deeds would be rewarded, that love would be returned. I need to remove an authorized user from my account, I said to each automated system, my voice steady and emotionless. Like I was ordering groceries. Like I was canceling a magazine subscription. Like I was doing something normal instead of systematically cutting my son off from everything he'd come to depend on. Next, the bank accounts. I changed every password, every security question. Added two-factor authentication. Made it so that the only person who could access my money was me. My money. Not our money. Not family money. Mine. Then I called my insurance company and removed Daniel as a beneficiary. Called the utility companies and changed the billing information. Called the property management company I'd been using to handle some rental properties Robert and I had invested in years ago. Each call was a thread being cut. Each password change was a door being locked. And with each one, I felt lighter. At 3 a.m, I did something I should have done years ago. I Googled tenant eviction laws in my state. Did you know that in most places, if someone lives in your house without paying rent, they're not tenants? They're occupants by permission. And permission can be revoked. I read article after article, blog post after blog post, legal advice forum after legal advice forum. I took notes in a spiral notebook, the kind I used to use when Daniel was in school and I'd help him study for tests. The irony wasn't lost on me. By the time the sun came up, I had a plan. It was precise, methodical, and completely legal. Just the way I liked things. When people show you what they think you're worth, it's time to audit the relationship. And my audit had revealed a deficit I could no longer afford to carry. Friday morning, I was up early. Not 5:30 this time, I slept until 7, luxuriously late by my recent standards. I made coffee just for myself. I sat at the kitchen counter, the same counter where my plate of scraps had sat the night before, and I drank it slowly, savoring every bitter sip. The house was quiet. Daniel and Jessica were still asleep, probably nursing hangovers from all that wine they'd drunk at my table, with my guests, or rather, their guests. I didn't make breakfast for them. Didn't set out the milk and cereal and fresh fruit like I usually did. Instead, I got dressed, jeans and a sweater, nothing special, and drove to the office of Patricia Chin, attorney at law. I'd found her practice online at 2:30 in the morning. She specialized in family law, property disputes, and elder advocacy. Her reviews all said the same thing: she's tough but fair. She fights for her clients. I needed someone to fight for me. God knows I'd spent long enough fighting for everyone else. Patricia's office was small but tidy, with warm lighting and comfortable chairs. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. "Mrs. Morrison," she said, gesturing for me to sit. "Your email said this was urgent." I'd sent her a 3 a.m. email with all my documentation attached. 5 years of financial records. Proof of every payment I'd made. Every bill I'd covered. Everything. "I want my son and his wife out of my house," I said. No preamble. No explanation. Just the truth. She didn't look shocked. Didn't ask if I was sure, didn't give me the concerned, pitying look I'd been dreading. She just nodded and opened the file I'd sent her on her computer. We sat in silence for several minutes while she reviewed it. I watched her eyes move across the screen, saw her eyebrows raise once or twice, saw her make notes on a legal pad. Finally, she looked up at me and smiled. Actually smiled. "You've done half my job for me," she said. Those words. God, those words. They were like water in a desert I hadn't even realized I was wandering through. Someone saw what I'd done. Someone understood. Since they've never paid rent, they're legally occupants by permission rather than tenants, Patricia explained, pulling up the relevant statutes on her screen. That means we can end their occupancy with a 30-day written notice. It's cleaner than a formal eviction and leaves less room for them to challenge it. 30 days, I repeated. 1 month. 4 weeks. That's all that stood between me and my home being mine again. "I can have the notice drafted by Monday," Patricia said. "We'll have it served formally so there's no question about whether they received it. And given this documentation," she gestured at her screen, "if they try to claim any kind of tenancy rights or challenge the notice, we have everything we need to shut that down immediately." I sat back in the comfortable chair and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The notice was served the following Tuesday. I wasn't there when it happened. Patricia had advised me to be out of the house, to let the process server do their job without any potential for confrontation. So I went to the movies. By myself. A matinee showing of some romantic comedy I barely paid attention to. I sat in the dark theater, eating overpriced popcorn, and tried not to think about what was happening at home. But of course I thought about it. How could I not? I imagined the doorbell ringing. Daniel answering, probably annoyed at being interrupted. The process server handing him the envelope. The confusion on his face as he read it. The realization. My phone started ringing at 2:47 p.m., right in the middle of the movie. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. And again. By the time the movie ended, I had 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages. Mom, what's going on? Did you do this? You need to call me right now. This is insane. Mom, please call me. I deleted them all without responding and drove home. They were waiting for me in the living room. Both of them. Daniel was pacing, his face red with anger or embarrassment or both. Jessica sat on the couch, the legal notice clutched in her hands, her mouth set in a thin line. What the hell is this? Daniel demanded the second I walked through the door. I set my purse down carefully on the hall table. Took off my coat. Hung it up. All very calm, very methodical. It's exactly what it says it is, I replied evenly. A notice to vacate the premises. You can't do this. Jessica's voice was shrill, accusing. This is Daniel's childhood home. You can't just throw us out. Actually, I can. I turned to face them, and I was surprised by how steady I felt. How calm. This is my house. My name on the deed. My mortgage payments. Mine. And I'm exercising my legal right to decide who lives here. Mom. Daniel's voice cracked. He looked like a child again, lost and confused. Mom, please. We can talk about this. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. What's wrong? I repeated. And then I laughed. Actually laughed. It came out harsh and bitter, a sound I'd never heard myself make before. What's wrong is that you invited strangers to Thanksgiving dinner in my house, at my table, eating my food, while I ate scraps in the kitchen like a dog. It wasn't like that, Jessica started, but I held up my hand. What's wrong is that I have paid every single bill for this house for 5 years and 7 months while you lived here rent-free and never once said thank you. We were saving money, Daniel began. What's wrong is that I have cleaned and cooked and organized and managed, and you took it all for granted. Took me for granted. Like I was just part of the furniture. Something useful but not actually worth noticing. My voice was rising now, despite my best efforts to stay calm. Years of hurt and anger and exhaustion were bubbling up, threatening to overflow. What's wrong, I continued, my voice shaking, is that I raised you better than this. Your father and I taught you respect, gratitude, basic human decency. And somewhere along the way, you forgot all of it. Mom. No. The word came out sharp as a knife. No. I'm done. I'm done explaining, done justifying, done being invisible in my own home. You have 30 days. Figure it out. And I walked away. Again. Because apparently that's what I do now. I walk away. And it feels goddamn liberating. The next few weeks were tense. They barely spoke to me, which was fine. I barely spoke to them either. We moved through the house like ghosts, avoiding each other, existing in separate realities that occasionally overlapped in the kitchen or hallway. Daniel's credit card got declined at the grocery store. I know because Jessica came home ranting about it, about how embarrassing it was, about how he had to put the groceries back. I felt nothing. Or maybe not nothing, maybe I felt satisfied. Is that terrible? Probably. I'm learning to be okay with being terrible. They tried to access the joint checking account I'd had with Daniel and found it was closed. I'd moved all the money to a new account, one with just my name on it. More yelling. More accusations. More, how could you do this to your own son? I could do it because he did it to me first. He just didn't realize there would be consequences. 2 weeks into the 30-day notice, I came home from my weekly coffee with Eleanor, one of the few friends I'd managed to maintain through all of this, to find my living room in shambles. The antique rug that had belonged to Robert's grandmother, the one I'd had professionally cleaned just before Thanksgiving, was destroyed. Someone had taken scissors to it, cutting jagged lines through the intricate pattern. Red wine had been poured all over it. It was completely ruined. I stood there, looking at the destruction, and felt a strange calm settle over me. They'd made a mistake. I pulled out my phone and took pictures. Dozens of them, from every angle. Then I called Patricia. "They vandalized your property?" She sounded angry on my behalf, which was oddly comforting. "That's destruction of property. That's a crime." "I have security cameras," I said. I'd had them installed the week before, just in case. "I have footage." "Send it to me." "All of it." "We're filing a police report, and we're using this to accelerate the eviction if they don't leave voluntarily." The security camera footage was damning. It showed Jessica, clear as day, cutting the rug while Daniel watched. Showed them pouring the wine. Showed them laughing. Laughing. At the destruction of a family heirloom. At their petty revenge for consequences they'd brought on themselves. I watched that footage 3 times before I emailed it to Patricia. Each time, I felt the last remnants of guilt crumbling away. Some people fight with fists. I fight with proof. And I had all the proof I needed. The police came the next day. I showed them the footage, the destroyed rug, the documentation of its value. They took statements. They looked at Daniel and Jessica with the kind of professional disappointment that police officers seem to specialize in. "We're going to need you both to come down to the station," one officer said. "For what?" "It's just a stupid rug." Jessica's voice was defensive, scared. "For destruction of property valued at over $5,000, the officer replied. "That's a felony in this state." I watched them being led out to the police car, not in handcuffs. They weren't being arrested, just asked to come in for questioning, and I felt nothing. No. That's not true. I felt relief. Relief that I'd finally stopped setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. Relief that I'd finally chosen myself. They moved out 2 days early. Packed everything in a rush, barely speaking to me. I helped them not at all, which Jessica made sure to point out. "You're really not going to help your own son move?" she asked, her voice dripping with contempt. "No," I said simply. "I'm not. Because I'd helped enough. I'd given enough. I'd sacrificed enough. It was someone else's turn to help them now." The last day, Daniel came to find me. I was in the kitchen, my kitchen, in my house, making coffee just for me. He stood in the doorway, looking smaller somehow. Diminished. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said quietly. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Tried to find the little boy I'd raised, the one who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers, who used to climb into my lap when he was scared, who used to tell me I was the best mom in the whole world. He was still in there somewhere. But he was buried under layers of entitlement and thoughtlessness and casual cruelty. "Do you even remember what you called me?" I asked. "That night at dinner, before all of this started?" He looked confused for a moment, then shook his head. "You said I was basically just there for the free meal." My voice was steady, but my heart ached. "You said that in front of all those people. In my house. About the meal I cooked." "Mom, I didn't mean." "Do you know what hurts most?" I interrupted. "It's not even that you said it. It's that it didn't occur to you that it was cruel. That you could say something like that to your mother and not even realize how devastating it was." He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I really am. I was trying to be funny, trying to impress Jessica's friends, and I didn't think." "No," I agreed. "You didn't think. You haven't been thinking for a long time. About me, about what I've done for you, about what I've sacrificed. I know that now. I see it now. Good. But you can't unhear a word once it's said. And I can't unlearn the truth. I took a sip of my coffee. Looked at this man who was my son, who I'd loved more than my own life, who I'd have done anything for. Who had shown me exactly how much that love was worth to him. I hope you figure it out, Daniel. I hope you learn to appreciate the people who love you before you lose them. But you're not going to learn that lesson here. Not anymore. I walked past him, leaving him standing alone in the kitchen. And I closed the door to my bedroom, in my house, and locked it. For the last time. The morning after they moved out, I woke up to silence. Complete, total, beautiful silence. No footsteps overhead. No voices in the hallway. No demands for breakfast or complaints about the temperature or passive-aggressive comments about how I organized the kitchen. Just silence. I made coffee and drank it in the living room, in the chair by the window where the morning light comes in golden and warm. The chair I never sat in because it was Daniel's spot. It's my spot now. Everything is my spot now. The locksmith came at 10 a.m. A cheerful man named George who didn't ask any questions, just changed all the locks efficiently and handed me the new keys. Fresh start, huh? He said with a knowing smile. Something like that, I replied. I made him tea while he worked. We chatted about nothing important, the weather, the holidays, his grandchildren. Normal conversation. Easy conversation. When he left, I locked the door behind him with the new lock and stood in the entryway of my house. The legal case resolved itself quietly. Patricia called to tell me that the property damage charges had been dropped in exchange for Daniel and Jessica paying restitution for the rug. They're also agreeing not to contest the eviction or make any claims about the property, she said. It's over. It's over, I repeated. The email confirming everything came through later that day. I saw the notification pop up on my phone, but I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. I already knew what it said. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up a browser. Typed into the search bar, solo travel groups for women 60+. Page after page of results. Women my age, women who'd spent their lives taking care of others, finally taking care of themselves. Traveling to Italy, hiking in New Zealand, taking cooking classes in France, volunteering in Costa Rica. Living. I clicked on one site, then another, reading testimonials and looking at photos. Women with gray hair and laugh lines and comfortable shoes, standing in front of ancient ruins and tropical beaches and bustling market squares. They looked free. They looked happy. They looked like me. Or like what I could be. Freedom doesn't always roar, you know. Sometimes it just exhales. Sometimes it's the quiet morning in your own house, drinking coffee from your favorite mug, not having to explain yourself or justify your choices or shrink yourself down to fit into someone else's expectations. Sometimes it's changing the locks and opening a new bank account and finally putting yourself first. Sometimes it's realizing that walking away isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing you can do. People will tell you that family is everything. That you should forgive, forget, turn the other cheek. That blood is thicker than water. But they never finish that saying, do they? The full version is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The bonds we choose can be stronger than the ones we're born into. And I'm choosing myself now. I went back to therapy. Something I'd stopped doing after Robert died because I was too busy taking care of everyone else. Dr. Martinez welcomed me back with a warm smile and a box of tissues. Tell me what's been going on, she said. And I did. I told her everything. The Thanksgiving dinner, the eviction, the vandalism, the moment I decided I was done. She listened without judgment. When I finished, she leaned forward and said something that made me cry for the first time in months. I'm proud of you. 4 words. That's all it took. Because nobody else had said them. Nobody else had seen what I'd done, not the eviction, not the cutting off of financial support, but the choosing of myself, and recognized it for what it was. Survival. Self-preservation. Self-love. I started volunteering at the community center on Tuesdays, teaching basic computer skills to seniors. It turns out I like teaching. I like helping people who appreciate it, who say thank you, who understand that knowledge and time and effort have value. I joined a book club. A real one, not like Jessica's group that invaded my house that Thanksgiving. We meet every other Wednesday at the library. We drink terrible coffee and argue passionately about novels and laugh at each other's jokes. I'm making friends. Real friends. The kind who ask how I'm doing and actually listen to the answer. I'm living. Daniel called me last week. First time since he moved out 3 months ago. I almost didn't answer. My finger hovered over the decline button for several seconds. But curiosity won out. Hi, Mom. His voice sounded different. Quieter. Humbler. Hello, Daniel. Silence on the line. I didn't fill it. Didn't rush to make him comfortable. Just waited. I wanted to tell you. Jessica and I are seeing a marriage counselor. That's good, I said neutrally. And I'm seeing a therapist. By myself, I mean. To work on things. That's also good. More silence. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. Or to want me back in your life. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to be better. To understand what I did wrong. What I took for granted. My throat tightened. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? For him to understand. To see. To change. But wanting it and being ready to accept it are two different things. I appreciate you telling me that, I said carefully. And I hope you do become better. I hope you learn to value the people who love you. But Daniel. I know. His voice cracked. I know it doesn't fix anything. No, I agreed. It doesn't. Can I call you again? Maybe in a few weeks? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yes, I said finally. You can call. But I'm not promising anything beyond that. That's fair. That's more than fair. We said goodbye. I hung up and sat with the phone in my hand, feeling a complicated tangle of emotions I couldn't quite name. Forgiveness isn't pretending it didn't hurt. It's choosing not to let it happen again. And I'm not there yet. Maybe I will be someday. Maybe I won't. Either way is okay. I booked my first solo trip last night. A 2-week tour of Ireland. Castles and cliffs and cozy pubs. I leave in 6 weeks. I'm terrified. I'm excited. I'm alive in a way I haven't been in years. Some lessons cost peace. Others buy it back. I spent 37 years building a life with a man I loved. I spent 5 years after his death trying to hold on to that life by pouring everything I had into our son. I lost myself completely in the process. But I found myself again. In the wreckage of Thanksgiving dinner. In a pile of financial spreadsheets. In a lawyer's office. In the click of new locks on my door. I found myself in the word no. In the decision to walk away. In the choice to value myself as much as I'd valued everyone else. If this story has touched you, if you've seen yourself in my pain or my anger or my final choice to choose myself, share it. Tell someone. Because there's someone out there right now who needs to hear this. Someone who's eating scraps at their own table. Someone who's paying bills for people who don't say thank you. Someone who's shrinking themselves smaller and smaller to fit into a family that doesn't see them. Tell them this. You are not selfish for wanting to be valued. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not wrong for walking away from people who take you for granted. Love has boundaries too. And you're allowed to enforce them. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to choose yourself, even when, especially when, everyone else expects you to choose them. Your worth isn't measured by how much you sacrifice. It's inherent. It's absolute. It's yours. And nobody, not your children, not your spouse, not your family, gets to take it from you. So walk away if you need to. Change the locks. Close the accounts. Book the trip. Choose yourself. Because freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just exhales. And that breath, that first free breath after years of holding it in, is the sweetest thing you'll ever taste. I'm still learning how to breathe freely. Still learning how to take up space in my own life. Still learning that it's okay to want things, to demand respect, to exist as more than just a supporting character in everyone else's story. It's hard. God, it's hard. But it's worth it. I'm worth it. And so are you. Remember that. Please remember that. Because the world will tell you to shrink. To sacrifice. To put everyone else first. But you know what happens when you set yourself on fire to keep others warm? You burn. And they barely notice the light. So stop burning. Start living. The people who truly love you will understand. And the ones who don't? They were never worth the fire in the first place. That's my story. That's my truth. That's my Thanksgiving that broke me and remade me all at once. I'm not the same woman I was a year ago. I'm sharper now. Harder in some ways, softer in others. I'm learning to protect myself the way I once protected everyone else. And I'm learning that it's okay. More than okay. Necessary. So here's to the last Thanksgiving I spent invisible. Here's to the first one I'll spend free. Here's to new locks and solo trips and coffee drunk in silence on a Tuesday morning. Here's to choosing yourself, even when it costs everything. Especially when it costs everything. Because you know what? You're worth the cost. We all are. Remember that. Hold on to that. And if you can't remember it for yourself yet, remember it for me. Remember it until you can believe it too. Because someday, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, you will. And that day will change everything. Just like mine did. Just like that last Thanksgiving. When I finally learned that the only person who can save you is yourself. And the only permission you need is your own.